Reddit. What are your WTF housemate stories? 19 years old, living in the barracks, have a roommate. In the same day, he found out he was getting kicked out. This was 1992. For being gay, his boyfriend dumped him, and he was HIV positive. Feels bad, man. So I go out drinking that night, come home at 0200 and rack out in the bottom bunk. He was top racked. He'd blown his brains out at about 11 PM the night before. I was too wasted notice the freaking dead roommate above me. Woke up to bloody sheets and lem tell ya something. That was a fricked experience. And you'd be amazed how much blood comes from a head wound. Shudder. Still hate thinking about it. Holy frick, man. I have a few. I woke up to find two couches Tetris style locked together in front of my bedroom door. On the day of my operations management final while in college, I screamed for an hour and it turns out my butthole roommates were blacked out drunk on the living room floor. I tried like heck, but it was a narrow hallway and I could only get up enough strength to push them back 6s. They were vertical. Same guys. Coming home after a long day of classes after an all-nighter, put down my bag, and got tasered in the spine. This happened a few times. A few years earlier in the dorms. My enormous redneck roommate, super sweet guy, but just a huge cuddly redneck, 6 feet 4 inches 250 pounds guy, nice as heck, came home from a frat party crap house drunk, got him into bed, played video games for a half hour and went to bed. 5 minutes after I get in I see him in the moonlight stagger out of bed and ignore it, and then I hear his belt clanking over top of my head. I look up and he's trying to pee. I kicked him in the chest and stomach yelling I am not a bathroom and he spun a few circles, staggered to his closet and pee into his laundry basket. Got tasered in the spine. Did not anticipate that ending. Walked in at 2 PM on a Tuesday to find the housemate and her friend power whoring. Essentially playing musical chair, but with alcohol instead of chairs, with a box of Franzia. Left, came back around 6 and the house had a weird smell to it. Walked into the shared bathroom to find crap soaked shorts in the tub. Turns out the friend had drank so much, on a Tuesday afternoon, that she pooed herself, abandoned ship, and fled the house. We called her power after that. My sophomore year of college, moved into the campus apartments. 4-bedroom apartment, individual locks on each door, shared 2 bathrooms. The first time I walked into that apartment was like a scene out of the show Hoarders. This was years before that show aired and that condition still was largely things of legend. There was a path to this guy's room, who I assumed had lived alone in that apartment for months. Took a cleaning crew a week to clean the apartment, fumigate and restore it to livable conditions. It was one of the only ones left in the complex and I sure as heck wasn't going to spend the school year living with my parents. I knew this was a sign of things to come. He never once did the dishes, never took the trash out, cooked god awful foul smelling crap at 3-4 AM, setting the sensitive fire alarm off all the time. Dishes got so bad that I was forced to use 2 garbage bags to dispose of the rotted fetid food in the sink. Because it was unfreaking usable. Left the bag on the porch for the remainder of the semester, where it sat all year. Once he asked me to go into his room to get his checkbook he forgot so he could pay rent that month. Shudder. Roommate hanged himself downstairs while I was in the house. I had no clue he was even having issues. Never had roommates again. I'm sorry to hear that. Not only must that have been hard on him and his family, but you. Hopefully you don't end up psychologically scarred from that and can get past it and would be able to have roommates if it were ever necessary. I moved in with one of my best buddies during college. He had always been kind of effeminate but I didn't care, he was my buddy. A few weeks after moving in together he starts bringing random guys over. Usually he would watch a movie with them and drink and then go upstairs to his room and hook up. A few times though when he was very drunk he would end up making out with them in the living room and in front of our mutual friends. I did not care at all and didn't say a word to him until one night he brought home a new guy and they were all over each other all night. The next day I did what most guy friends do and I say, dude, good job on sealing the deal last night. He completely flipped crap. He kept yelling at me that he wasn't gay and that I was a terrible friend and that was pretty much the last time we ever talked. He moved out a month or so later. 7 years later he finally came out of the closet. I kind of want to send him a message and see how he's doing, but it seems awkward after how badly our last conversation went. I'm not gay, but this I'm kissing is. My brother has a gay black guy as a roommate. Nothing wrong with that, but he was telling me that when he first met him, there was a pile of Whitney Houston magazines announcing her death. He asks him, "Wow, you must really love Whitney Houston." And his roommate replies with, "Yeah, but you ain't even seen my trunk." He goes into his room and pulls out a big suitcase and opens it. It was filled with photos of Whitney Houston, candles he lights every night, in her memory, and a black Barbie doll, obviously named Whitney. The thing is, he's gay and he's stressed that he didn't have a crush on her, he just highly likes her. Maybe if your brother hadn't interrupted his ritual he could have successfully brought her back from the dead. Didn't happen to me but a friend. We'll call her D had a 2-bedroom house she lived in for a few years. Housemates kept rotating through, but always good folks. D always attracts interesting, fun people like herself. This all came to an end when a housemate moved out with no notice. D had to fill the space ASAP or move out. One of the possibles was a guy, we'll call him Guy, who seemed reasonably cool but had no money and no references, but had just started a good, well-paying job and had a girlfriend, GF1, who would pay his first month and deposit. D instantly liked GF1, and all the other applicants were worse, so Guy moved in. Guy lost his new job almost immediately and begins sponging off GF1 for all his expenses. D is not happy about this, but he's there and rent's getting paid. Even worse, he's having another lady friend, GF2, come over to spend nights behind GF1's back. Guy then kicks GF1 to the curb, and GF2 moves in. GF2 has Crohn's disease, but does not take care of herself. In fact, she and Guy start partying more and more, escalating from booze and weed to harder drugs. D was ready to kick them out even before they stopped paying rent. One morning D wakes up to a loud banging on the front door. It's GF1, saying she got a call from Guy. GF2 is having some kind of medical issue and they need to check on her. D and GF1 open the bedroom to find GF2 dead in the bed. Police want to talk to Guy, but he can't be found. Apparently he just flipped out, got in his car and started driving. Turns out GF2 died from her lifestyle and disease, so no foul play. TLDR housemate leaves dead girlfriend in bed, runs away and calls ex to deal with it. Frick. They went on vacation and came back to find their dog had taken a huge dump on their pillows, blamed it on me, and threatened with the ultimatum that I either fork over $400 to replace the mattress or move out within 30 days. I was not responsible for taking care of the dog, but I still cleaned up the pee and crap the poor guy was forced to leave in the hallway, where he lived, by the way, because the guy that was watching him didn't come often. They firmly expressed that their room was strictly off limits while they were gone, so I did not even open the door. This whole situation could have been avoided if they bothered to fix the door he kicked in the previous week during one of their usual epic fights. I tried to tell them that a couple of push pins and an old pillowcase wouldn't keep the dog out of their room. So apparently it was all my fault, and I was met with insanely loud screaming when they got home. It was so bad I started to get an anxiety attack and barricaded myself in my room. We chose the 30-day option. That's a whole other story. I would like to hear this story. I, myself, had a miserable roommate in the past. One night I was woken up at 4 AM when I heard shouting from the bathroom I shared with another girl. This girl was one of the quietest, meekest people I'd ever met, and was absolutely screaming at some guy in the bathroom. She had a long distance boyfriend and was only friends with this guy, so I knew it wasn't some kind of romantic tiff, and had no idea why she would be yelling at him. This went on for a while, then there were a couple toilet flushes, then more screaming, then someone turned on the shower and the conversation seemed to continue at a more normal volume while the shower was on. At this point I figured everything was okay and went back to sleep. The next day I found out the girl had gotten abandoned by her friends after going out drinking with them, which was not really possible. We were in a really small town. and one of them came to find her, at which point they both felt the need to vomit. So there they were in the bathroom, alternately screaming at each other and vomiting into the toilet at the same time, then decided to get into the shower together in a completely platonic way to clean up. They woke up the next morning both sprawled sideways across the bed, with no memory of what had happened the night before. Their other friends who had been staying in our living room had heard it all from outside the bathroom, so they were the ones who told us what was going on. Housemate went right back to her usual meek, quiet self. I once walked in on my roommate, naked, popping boob zits over my desk. It happened more than once. Now that I think about it, needless to say, I disinfected my stuff several times a week. Not really a housemate story, but I think it applies. So I was deployed to Afghanistan, and I shared a room with 3 other dudes. I had a bottom bunk. What most people did was to hang a blanket so you had some privacy, block out light so you could sleep. Well, every other day I would be in my bed reading or trying to sleep, and all of a sudden the whole bed would be shaking. It took all of about 4 seconds for me to realize dude was jerking it. I screamed what the frick butthole, and he stopped. For a couple of days. Needless to say, every time it happened I would yell something and he would stop for a few days. I mean, come on, have the common decency to rub one out in the shower like everyone else. I woke up to a roommate beating off right over top of me. I didn't even know he was gay. I got up and punched him right in the stomach as hard as I could and told him to get the frick out of there. He told me he was in love with me. I asked him to leave. He was incredibly drunk and didn't remember doing it, but it doesn't really matter. Once I told the other housemates he was asked to leave. He actually didn't stay another night. He went over to live with his parents until he could find another place. What a creep. I'm gay and you what the frick. We discovered this nastiness after he'd already moved out. My mom and I were cleaning the house after both my basement dwelling roommates moved out. She gets to the bathroom in the basement and starts cleaning cupboards and drawers out when she discovered one drawer filled with hundreds of toenail clippings. I can't imagine how long he'd been stashing them there, and I'd rather not comment on the smell. Wait till they see this. Walked in on my roommate changing out of a Spider-Man morph suit one day. He frozen when I opened the door, paused for a second, and said this is exactly what it looks like. I'm moving into a 5-person house with my closest friends next year after living in a single the first year of college. As a neat freak, you all have me crapping my pants right now, which I will be promptly cleaning up. Better get used to dirty dishes. I used to live in this big house with 6 roommates. The landlord was a very nice Asian lady and the tenants were mostly international students and easygoing. I got along all of the roommates until this white trash named Eric moved in. He just became a negative entity to the household. Ate other people's food, parked in my parking spot, used my laundry detergent, and the list goes on. Pets were not allowed, but he got a puppy anyways without the landlord's permission. The puppy wasn't house trained, so it shoots and pisses all over the place. Me and this other tenant always end up cleaning after this bee. Landlord couldn't get him to move out since her English wasn't that good and she's just a sweet nice lady. I moved out soon after that. 2 months after I move out I get a phone call from Eric at 1 AM. He's calling from LA County Jail. Eric burned a lot of bridges in the past and didn't have many friends, but apparently he thinks I was his friend since I was the only one in the household that talked to him. He wants me to bail him out. Nope, JPG. Had randomly assigned roommates in my app my first year of college. An epically idiotic stoner, a B guy and a socially awkward mousy guy. The stoner was the worst one. Literally every day he would come tell me about how high he was or what he was on. This all started after I smoked with him one time. If I was doing homework, making food or even napping, he would find me and want to show me his weed and tell me how high he was and the stupid crap he had done because of it. Now I am not against smoking weed. I do myself, but I am against people blowing it out of proportion. I couldn't give a frick if you're high or not. I remember one time I came home from partying at like 4 AM and he was washing his sheets. Apparently he had taken shrooms, which I also don't care about, and thought his bong was a magical fountain or something and doused himself and his bed in super dirty bong water like he was dying of thirst in a desert of idiocy. A while later, after I went to the library for a late nighter, The cops came and seized over $300 worth of his paraphernalia and weed because like a douche he had been smoking in the apt and everyone could smell it, so the RA was notified. He also tried to tell me once that I was still sick because I went to the library so much and I should stay home and not worry about it. Needless to say, he didn't make anything of himself that year. TLDR. Stoned out douche bombards me with his newbie stoner talk and gives himself a bong water shower. In freshman year I lived with the 8 other girls. 5 of them were complete B. One of the girls I'll call T bought squeaky toys and squeezed them for hours almost every day. Most of the girls never took out the trash. My roommate was the only other person who took out the trash or cleaned up after themselves in the kitchen. To show them a lesson, my roommate and I didn't take out the trash for almost a week, and 2 of the other housemates walk in, look at the trash and say, someone should take that out before walking out of the room. They also didn't understand energy consumption and left all lights on at all hours. The worst was them blasting the TV every night until the AM. There were days I woke up at 7 AM and the TV was still on and no one was there. This doesn't even scratch the surface of half the crazy crap they did. TLDR. Lived with spoiled, awful B who wasted electricity. Had a roommate with hygiene issues. Wore the same clothes multiple days in a row. Seldom showered. Stuff like that. The big problem was that she slept on her mattress without any sheets. Just flat on it. By the time she moved out, I swear that thing was becoming sentient. The worst part was when my remaining housemate and I put it to the curb. Some poor fellow picked it up. I mean, he looked well-to-do. Had a newer minivan. Maybe he just wanted a big mattress for the guest room. Whatever his reason, he had no idea what thing he put into the back of his van. We should have burned it. My GF was hanging out at my house along with my roommate best friend. I went to bed but they stayed up. She made me promise to wake her up at 5 AM for work. I obliged. To find them on the couch naked, I sat on the chair next to them as they dressed and she left. Me smoking cigarette after cigarette trying to process this. He started to dismantle his bed and move out, all while yelling and backtracking with little coherence. He asked me if he should move out. I said yes. I don't trust you anymore. He stormed out and spent the next hour calling and texting me that he was going to kill himself. So I ended up talking him down and calming him down. The next day he blamed me for not recognizing his alcoholism. It was my fault for having her over that this happened. Maybe he had a grain of a point. A few weeks later I was on a Greyhound out of that state for good. Once, I woke up to my roommate coming home drunk as frick. He totally crawled into my bed and passed out. I was too astounded to even do anything. I thought I was dreaming. Then I pushed him onto the floor, about a 2-foot drop, where he laid until he was woken up about 4 hours later. Also, once I found my neighbor passed out in the bathtub. We had barracks rooms that shared a bathroom. Every 2 rooms were connected via bathroom, wearing nothing but a Crown Royal bag over his junk. Needless to say, I all of a sudden didn't feel the need to take a shower that morning. One more for you. I once woke up in the middle of the night to take a pee, but became suddenly aware of the noises coming from my roommate's bed. He had brought home a H, but couldn't get it up. That poor H. She must have sucked him off for over an hour. Eventually, she gave him her card and said, "Call me tomorrow, maybe?" So my sophomore year in college I had a quiet, polite roommate who I got along great with. Anyway, we shared an on-campus apartment which included a full bath in the room. Well, I'm a light sleeper, so every night I would wear earplugs and a face mask because she would get up before me. So one morning I wake up to a text from her simply stating, "Sorry about the blood in the bathroom, I'll clean it up when I get home." I don't really know what to think. I'm still laying in bed. Alarm just went off, but I'm thinking, oh, maybe she shaved her legs and nicked herself. Didn't have time to clean it up. Not at all. So I walk into the bathroom and there is a plate-sized puddle of dried blood on the floor. I'm talking like, OMG, who died in here? As well as blood all over the sink. Apparently she had woken up for class, gotten up out of bed too fast, and by the time she got into the bathroom she had major head rush, passed out in the bathroom, smacking the bridge of her nose on the edge of the bathtub and busting it open. I didn't hear a dang thing because I was in sensory deprivation mode sleeping away. I'll tell you, I was in nursing school and am now a nurse. Her excuse for why she didn't wake me was because she thought I couldn't handle the scene. Oh, and I forgot to mention, she had called other friends who couldn't come to help and eventually opted to call campus police. WHO came into the room to investigate and take her to the hospital. Didn't wake up for one moment of the whole thing. I cleaned up the blood, bought a new floor mat, and welcomed her home 2 days later from the hospital. My professor cancelled our class the next day, so I knew I could sleep in a bit. I reached an arm out and turned off my alarm before it went off, and about 20 seconds later lurched my entire body upwards. In a blurred daze from waking up, I saw the silhouette of my roommate, clearly not clothed at all. Thankfully didn't see any of his junk, just the figure and constant skin tone. He had a hair trimmer in his hand, standing over his wastebasket. He was manscaping. He yelled some nonsense, then covered himself up, saying that he thought I had already gone to class, which made no sense because I lurched my hand to turn off my alarm. Plus the fact he was facing me while manscaping, how could he not see me? He moved out the day before Christmas break. I left early, but my roommate says that he apparently peed into his wastebasket before he went to bed that night. He also passed out in the shower several times, once of note even causing the shower to flood and seep into the girls' room underneath our bathroom. He was a pretty rad guy. I've posted this before, but here goes. Well, first she slept with my boyfriend, then she apologized and I forgave her. Several months later, she got drunk and told me that she wasn't sorry and that I deserved it and had it coming. Then she burned down the apartment we lived in together. Then we got sued, and instead of taking care of the damages, there were witnesses to the fact that it was 100% her fault, and she admitted it to the firefighters who subsequently put it in their report. Also, she had the money in the bank to cover the costs. She lowered up and she cost me and our other roommate a crap ton of money that we didn't have in attorney's fees and settlement. I lived in residence, where there were 2 dudes per room. Came home from the bar one night, after a night of rather excessive drinking. My roommate and I, let's call him Butthole because he was a mad butthole, had a deal where we would text or call each other if we had a girl back in the room. Not a big deal. So I get home at like 3 AM, open the door, and he's nailing my girlfriend. LOL, I was kicked out of that residence for beating the frick out of my roommate in a drunken emotional rage. Kicked his butt though. I had a crazy roommate who used to pay for our internet bill, and the landlord would reimburse him. One time, the bill was exceptionally high, and the landlord was questioning. Roommate yelled at him, called him names, and said he better pay him back or else. Landlord was going to reimburse him anyway. He just wanted to know why it was so high. Then the roommate demanded $400 from each of us. We were 4 in the apartment. When we refused, he said he was canceling the internet. It was exam time. And one roommate freaked out, telling him he better not cut the internet. The crazy roommate pushes the other, then runs to his room and shuts the door. My other roommate storms his door, breaking it open, hits him in the face. The crazy roommate tackles him through the door, breaking all the glass panel door. Note that there were 2 20-year-old dudes in their boxers rolling around in the hallway in glass screaming at each other. I broke them up, and they both went into their rooms. The next day, crazy roommate went out and bought a massive padlock and a metal bar to secure his room shut. Then he bought a fridge for his room. We never saw him again. He basically lived in his room because he never wanted to see or talk to us. I swear he never even came out to use the bathroom. Skip to 3 months later. Haven't talked to him or seen him since the incident. We come home from school and there are flowers all over the apartment. Tulips and daisies, and the whole place was spotless. Turns out his girlfriend was visiting from France, and he never told her about what happened. He was pretending we were all best friends to make his GF comfortable. No one had any idea what to do say, but we were nice, since we were all good people. But after she left, we told him he was an butthole and needs to get back in his cage he built for himself. Get back in your cage. Yeah, he's the odd one. One of my roommates cooks DMT on our kitchen stove and writes code in his spare time. He also didn't know how to respond to WhatsApp. I think something went severely wrong in his childhood. My roommate freshman year of undergrad came home one night. I don't think he was drunk, but he was definitely fricked up on something. Anyways, He came into the room, got completely naked, screamed freaking goddamn lights and threw his computer onto the ground. Then he took a pee in his closet and went to bed. Also, there were no lights. Our room was completely dark. I am occasionally very light sensitive, migraines, and the blue standby lights on newer electronics will drive me batshit insane. If he'd taken something that dilated his pupils, then even the smallest light could be too bright to sleep with. This is the thread I was meant to post in. Michael and Mindy are dating. I live with them. Wade and Michelle are dating. I also live with them. So I live with two couples. I'm the fifth wheel and the only sane person living in this house. Michael hits Mindy at least once a month. They get into a fight and he leaves for a few days and then Mindy forgives him and all is well. Michael also used to smoke doesn't have a job and invited two addicted friends of his to stay on our couch for the last month. Beyond the beatings, which are none of my business, Michael and Mindy are made for each other. Michelle and Wade are fine. They're both dumb but very sweet. The most WTF moment I've had with these four people came last weekend when out of frickin' nowhere Michael and Michelle decided to run off to Vancouver together forever, leaving Wade and Mindy on their own. Michael is a skinny white kid, and Michelle is at least 300 pounds. The kicker? They came back this weekend and are back with their respective partners and all is as normal as it ever was. It's freaking insane. I live with crazy people. Crazy, dumb, backwards people. Late in college I was working an early shift at a weekend job. I typically woke up on Saturday at 6 AM, made a crappy breakfast, and went off to work. One morning, I heard a noise coming out of the bathroom adjoining the kitchen. I noticed the light was still on, and the door was cracked open. Then I heard a thud. I wearily looked into the bathroom door, warily, because this was the bathroom used by my female roommates. This is what I saw. Apparently, my roommate had stumbled home late the night before and sat on the toilet. She apparently got to texting. This is pre-smartphones era, and must have fallen asleep. She then fell from the toilet, pants still ankle high, and was lying on the floor with her butt in the air, leaning against the nearby sink. Her appearance was filthy. I skipped my breakfast. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.